How's it going,
What's
Preston?
up, Pound of Gold? How you doing?
Great. Doing good.
So we were just talking off camera. The Bay Area actually has, people like to, crap on the Bay Area, and on California in general. But in terms of if you're a coin collector, the Bay Area's got a lot of good shops. You've got Witter Coin in San
Oh yeah,
Francisco.
I love
I mean,
Winter.
who's the guy who runs that?
Seth. Seth
Seth.
Chandler.
Yeah. Seth.
Yeah.
That guy's a beast.
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, it's such
And
a
he's so
cool.
in it. Like
Yeah.
he loves it. Yeah.
Yeah, and like Whittier, I mean, they're one of the top places in the country to go to. And then you've got Mist International in Menlo Park. He's been around probably 40, 50 years. Super old guy at this point, but or not that. I think he's in his 70s. But he does a lot of like European coins and a lot of colonial American coins. He knows tons about the Ocho Reales, like what I told you about
Mm-hmm.
the last video we did. He was the one who spotted the fake that I brought in. I didn't know it was fake. I mean, it was 90% silver. So, anyways, yeah, no, the Bay Area it's a great place for coin shops.
Yeah.
Who'd think? But it's major metropolitan area, and there's a big market. There really is. There's a big market here for gold and
Yeah, I
silver.
think for
Yeah.
people think of brick and mortar, they think more Chicago, New York.
Yeah.
Harry Burke, what is it in Chicago? There's
Yeah.
no, like killer
Uh-huh.
in Chicago. But yeah, it seems like each
Yeah.
city has their one major one. But what about, does LA have a major shop? I don't think LA has a major.
You
They got
know, I think they do.
They have the Long Beach show.
Yeah, well, yeah, they got the Long Beach show, which is a big deal.
That's like 4 times a year, I think.
Yeah, I actually haven't been.
Last summer I went.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I blew every penny I had. Yeah, it's great. I'm still paying for it.
Yeah, well, it's as they say, if you're gonna go into debt for anything, it's better to do it on an appreciating asset versus
That's
an
true.
appreciating
That's true.
asset.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we're a debt-based society. I'm just
Yeah.
following the path, man. I'm just following.
Yeah. Oh, what is it? I'm sure there's some big ones down in LA. I don't know who they are, but yeah. So I wanted to get started with some news over the past couple weeks. So I'm going to read to you from it's a website called the Credit Bubble Bulletin by Doug Noland. So what he does, he just takes news stories from usually the United States, but also from Europe and around the world, and he compiles them. And because the guy, he's a hedge fund manager, so he runs a hedge fund, and his focus is we're in a credit bubble, right?
Mm.
So what does that mean? We've got too much credit outstanding, like here in the United States, $34 trillion in debt. So that's credit. That's a credit bubble because
Yeah.
there's too much of it. And you look here, you look in Japan, you look in China, you look in all over Europe, Germany, France, UK, Spain, Italy, Greece. We're in a credit bubble, and we've been in a credit bubble for 40, 50 years. And what does that mean? When you have a bubble, bubbles pop. So eventually, that bubble, that sovereign debt bubble that we're in, it's going to pop. So anyways, I highly recommend it. Credit Bubble Bulletin, you can just Google it. Doug Noland, he's with McIlvany Financial.
And how often does it come out?
Once a week, every Saturday. So, and he does it daily. He'll compile every day. He compiles news stories, and he doesn't do any writing. He'll just bing, 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 like Bloomberg, Fox News, CNN, whatever whatever stories are coming out. He's really good. And if you want it's his Saturdays, he calls it the Credit Bubble Weekly. It's take you probably about 40 minutes to get through it. I mean, it's long, but definitely worth a read. Really great way to understand what's going on without going out and reading all the articles and subscribing to Wall Street Journal or New York Times or whatever. So
That's cool. I'll definitely check it out.
yeah, Credit Bubble Bulletin. So anyways, this is from last week's, not this week's, yesterday's. This is from the previous week. So May 24th, he pulls from Agence France Presse, which is is French. It's like their what is it, like Reuters in France. So I'm gonna read. China warned on Friday of war over Taiwan and said it would ramp up countermeasures until complete reunification was achieved, as Chinese forces conducted military drills around the self-ruled island. Warships and fighter jets encircled Taiwan on the second day of exercises. The exercises were launched 3 days after Lai Ching-te took office and made an inauguration speech that China denounced as a confession of independence. Beijing's Defense Ministry spokesman Wu Qian said that Lai has seriously challenged the One China principle, pushing our compatriots in Taiwan into a perilous situation of war and danger. Every time Taiwan independence provokes us, we will push our countermeasures one step further until the complete reunification of the motherland is achieved, he said.
Yeah.
So, kind of scary.
Yeah, and we upped our military presence. I think last summer we were upping our presence there.
Yeah, it's I mean, we got to remember, it's an election year. And, I think if China were to invade Taiwan, and obviously this is my personal opinion, but, you look at kind of how things are, it makes sense. And if people disagree with me, okay, great. But I would say, being an election year, you got Biden in power, and who knows if Trump gets elected, if he's actually going to be president or whatever. We don't know where the United States is headed right now. So this is a perfect time for China to start ramping things up. If I were the Chinese, which I'm not, and I don't advocate for this, but let's just say you're playing chess, right? So if you're Chinese on the chessboard against the United States, or you're playing like Risk, right?
Yeah.
Now is a great time to take Taiwan. Like,
That's true.
the United States is super compromised. We're highly, highly compromised with what's going on in Ukraine, and then of course what's going on in Israel with Gaza. Like, we are very high, and then we've got $34 trillion in debt, and our debt payments are now exceeding our defense budget payments every month.
But do you think it's the U.S. that is holding back China from going in there and just taking over? You think it's us?
Yes, yeah, absolutely, 100%. So I think I might have shared this on this channel, but when I lived in Vietnam, I was there 2017 through 2019, through June 2019, and so that was when Trump was president, and there, obviously, for the past 20 years, China has been building islands in the South China Sea. Super controversial over there because, China, you have Vietnam, Philippines, you have Vietnam and the Philippines, I'm not sure about Malaysia. They all have claims to the South China Sea. And then China, with their 9-dash line, is extending their claim south. So what they're doing
Can you explain that? Because I know it is, but most people don't understand this, how important it is.
So,
the 9-dash line.
So the 9-dash line, you just look it up. It's like, you look at it, you're like, this line, it's not a line. First of all, it's not a line at all. It's a curve that goes, it dips all the way down into the South China Sea. And so it's an extension of Chinese territory, essentially. And so what the Chinese are doing to enforce that 9-dash line is they're essentially just building artificial islands and putting airstrips on them and extending the Chinese Navy further south. The reason the South China Sea is so important to all these different countries is you still have a good amount of oil at the bottom of the South China Sea. Where I lived in Vietnam, I lived in the city of Vung Tau, which is the main hub for oil and gas.
Really?
Yeah, for the oil and gas industry in Vietnam. The main oil and gas company was Vietso Pietro, which was a joint government partnership between the Russian and Vietnamese governments. So it's a state oil company, but it's run jointly by the Vietnamese and the Russians. So during the war, when the Americans were there, you had Chevron, let's see who else. A bunch of American oil companies built offshore oil drilling rigs out in the South China Sea, and they drilled. So they were drilling in the South China Sea when the Americans were there in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
So obviously, 1975 rolls around. The North Vietnamese take over, kick out the Americans. Americans are not allowed. The American oil companies leave. Fast forward about 7 years, 1982. The Vietnamese, they knew they were sitting on all this oil in the South China Sea. They didn't have the resources, nor did they have the engineering expertise. So what did they do? They invited the Soviets. They invited the Soviets to help them to develop the oil wells in the South China Sea, and that was the beginning of Viet Pietro. So when I lived in Vung Tau, there were lots of Russians, and so actually I taught Russian to I taught English to several Russians while I was there, and one of them, it was a family. There was actually Russian territory in the town of Vung Tau. I had to show my American passport, and they actually didn't like that I was American, so they kicked me out. I was not allowed. After I think 1 or 2 lessons, they figured out American was, teaching English, and in their territory.
Yeah.
So and I ended up meeting my student, at a cafe a block away. But so that oil is highly important to Vietnam. And and Vietnam, the Philippines, they have their share of oil control as well. I know Indonesia, I don't think they have claim to it because they're further south, but Indonesia also has oil, kind of similar,
So does
offshore.
Taiwan have oil?
Taiwan does not, to my knowledge. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure they don't.
But if China takes Taiwan, it's strategically important.
Yeah, but it's strategically important for one key reason, and that's semiconductors. Because you have TSM, Taiwan Semiconductor, that is based out of Taipei. And so they are the key supplier to the whole world of semiconductors. They're not strategic for oil, they're strategic for their ability to make the most precise, the best semiconductors. So anyways, what the South China Sea is really about is oil. And the Chinese, obviously, they want that oil. Another thing, though, to understand is in the South China Sea, while I was there, I talked to people who were in the oil industry left and right. And the one thing I heard in common was there's another 10 years before the oil runs out here. The South China Sea is running out of oil. At least that's what I was told. Maybe they found in the intervening years, maybe they found more oil deposits. I don't know. But that at the time, the underlying assumption was we're running out of oil here, and it won't be much longer that we're still here. So I'm sure the Chinese know that. So with that knowledge, why would they be going further into the South China Sea over oil, or is it just territory? They just want territory. Another thing to keep in mind in Asia in general is, especially Vietnam, is that Vietnam was a part of China for 1,000 years. So you go to Vietnam, culturally very similar to China. They have Lunar New Year, same time as the Chinese. There are a lot of Chinese descended people. The Vietnamese language is like 60% of the words they share in common with Chinese.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then you look at of course, the written language is Roman letters. Well, that's the case because the French were there. The French introduced the Roman alphabet. Mm-hmm. Well, before that, it was Chinese characters. So this is all over Asia. You'll see this. You go to Korea, you go to Vietnam. You look at the temples, the older temples before like in Vietnam, before the French arrived, they're all Chinese characters. Huh. They had the Vietnamese language, but it was represented in writing by Chinese characters. So, anyways, so the Chinese, it gives you kind of an insight into how the Chinese view Vietnam, especially, is this was once ours, we want to take it again. And when I was there, this was in 2018, there were massive protests going on among the Vietnamese people against what Chinese were doing is they were building autonomous zones within Vietnam where only Chinese nationals were allowed to enter. No Vietnamese people were allowed to enter into these autonomous zones. And there were four. One was in Phu Quoc, which is far, far south. It's a tourist destination. It's like Hawaii for Vietnam. It's beautiful. Tropical island, beautiful beaches. The Chinese had one there, and they had three others along the country. So, so the Chinese kind of...
And they feel that same way about Taiwan as they do it with Vietnam.
Well, Taiwan's a little different because you have to remember Taiwan split off. So you had the cultural, you had the Chinese Civil War, it started in the 30s, and then the Japanese invaded, and that kind of messed things up. So you had the communists, and you had the nationalists. The communists led by Mao Zedong, and then you had the nationalists led by Chiang Kai-shek. So Chiang Kai-shek and the nationalists eventually were kicked out by Mao and the communists. And where did they go? They went to the island of Formosa, which is we now know as Taiwan. Formosa, before that point, has changed hands over the years. Before then was Japanese, and then the Chinese nationalists came over and declared it to be theirs. So they were the Republic of China, and then you had the People's Republic of China in mainland China. And up until 1971, we only recognized Taiwan as China. We didn't recognize Communist China as China. And then Nixon, of course, had detente with the Soviets and the Communist Chinese. And then recognized the People's Republic of China, Communist China, as China. And then Taiwan as Taiwan. So, anyways,
I could see in the next how much time we have left before the election. Not much time.
Well, here's where I was going with that. So when Trump was president, you had this whole conflict. The Chinese were, messing around in South China Sea, and you know what Trump did? He parked an aircraft carrier in Da Nang, it's about halfway down the coast in Vietnam. It's a coastal city. He just parked a U.S. aircraft carrier there, and Vietnamese loved it. Like Vietnamese people were so excited that the United States was standing up for them against China. So when I taught English,
I remember this. It was just parked.
Yeah, and Vietnamese people were so grateful because obviously it's Vietnam. They have a joke of a navy. Like China's navy's not great, but they could definitely beat Vietnam's navy. The Vietnamese navy is they've got a couple ships, but it's nothing. So the American Navy, really has some pull in the South China Sea. So anyways, my students, I would ask them, just goofing around, like, students, hey guys, what do you think of America? Because when I got to Vietnam, I thought, you're gonna hate me, because we had a war here, right? Yeah. And it's like what a lot of Americans will do, like if they go to Europe, you hear this story, pretend to be Canadian, because they're embarrassed about being American. Yeah. But the thing is like you go to Vietnam, like, they have no problem with Americans. Yeah. They love Americans. So I asked,
totally new generations.
Yeah,
they'll wear. I've seen like pictures of like crazy shirts where it's like a T-shirt with like literally an American flag and a soccer ball. Like it's like
the T-shirts in Vietnam are wild. Like you see the funniest things. So I would ask my students, what do guys, what do you think of America? It'd be like, teacher, we love America. We love America. I'm like, okay. They call you teacher. Teacher Preston.
Yeah, Teacher Preston.
And then, I'd ask them, okay, guys, what do you think of China? Teacher, we hate China. We hate China. They like super serious. Like they really don't like China. And that's true all over Southeast Asia. The Chinese, let's be honest, they're bullies. Like you look at Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam. There's a city of Sinukville, which I never visited, but I knew a lot of people who've been there, and it was once a small fishing village on the beach. Great place to, it's beautiful, beautiful beaches, super cheap if you're backpacker or something. A lot of backpackers would end up there. Well, what the Chinese did is they bought up all the land, kicked everyone out, and built casinos. And just totally, changed it into like a casino hellscape.
Wow.
And what they do, what the Chinese government is doing through it's called the One Belt One Road initiative.
Yeah.
Is they are trying to connect all of Eastern Asia with Western Asia through railroads, road networks, power plants, everything. And it's got the facade of, oh, this is great for everybody. Well, really,
of course.
It's only good for the Chinese,
Yeah.
because what the Chinese do, and I'm not the only one talking about this, is they bring in only Chinese laborers, so it doesn't contribute to the local economy. So they'll have
they're being their own IMF, right? Like they're like,
yes, and they will put you into major debt.
Yeah.
That you will never be able to pay back.
Never.
Which is intentional because they want to own you.
Yeah, exactly.
You will be their slave.
Who did they learn that from?
Yes, Americans set a very good example. By the way, which reminds me of another good book for your viewers to check out if they haven't, which is exactly what we're talking about, is Confessions of an Economic Hitman by, I'm sure one of your viewers will know the
It sounds familiar.
Perkins. I think his last name is either Perkin or Perkins. I know that's his last name, but really good, because what he does is he explains how the United States essentially is enslaved. They, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, enslaved the rest of the world through debt.
Yeah.
They did that in Indonesia with building several power plants down there that the Indonesians couldn't afford, and they couldn't pay back. So because they couldn't pay back, they had to make concessions to U.S. Companies.
Right. South America.
Yeah, Ecuador is,
Central America.
and so he actually is very interesting. He talks about he personally knew the president of Panama, the president of Ecuador, both of whom. So Panama was Trujillo. I don't remember the guy in the early 80s who was the president of Ecuador. Both died in plane crashes. So, and he, in the book, is very clear. He's like, no, this was the CIA. This was definitely, U.S. intelligence. They'll never make it look like an assassination. They'll make it look like an accident.
The guys that set up those deals in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the IMF, all that, I mean, gangsters, right?
Yes.
Totally, they're like, oh yeah, cashing in, just here to help. Just here to help.
Yeah.
It's like some stuff.
So the Chinese have done a very good job of copying that model. And another place you can look is also the South Pacific. They have created, actually 60 Minutes Australia did a really good story on this. It's I think it's an hour-long video where they fly the film crew to all these islands that ring Australia along the, that would be the northeastern side between the United States and Australia, where they had built ports, airports, done big dredging projects to build places where you could dock a massive super tanker, things that they didn't really need, but they were like, oh yeah, this is great. Well, same thing. Couldn't afford it, went into debt with the Chinese, and so now the Chinese, they essentially, for lack of a better term, they own those islands. Now, it's not going to say it's Chinese territory, of course, because they're sovereign nations.
Yeah.
But they've indebted those nations to China for those projects, which, the Americans and the Australians do view with alarm, because those are key shipping lanes between the United States and Australia.
Yeah.
So, if you were if you were strategic, you could, let's say you're the Chinese and you want to, grab the West by the balls. Sorry for my language. You could block. You could block out those shipping lanes as through that chain of islands. It's anyways. So what's going on with China is, it's a little scary. Their economy is falling apart. We're getting a lot of stories right now of China's economy is pretty much in free fall. They've been I think it was how much billion? It was like a couple hundred billion renminbi, which comes to like $40 billion. They set aside for local governments to buy up existing inventory of houses, of real estate.
This is the
panic move. I think it was Jeff Curry, who is a former analyst at Goldman Sachs, said, I think it was him, because he had an interview recently on CNBC where essentially it's just a drop in the bucket. Like, it literally makes no difference. Does not help anything. You've got, I think it's either 60 million empty units in China, like 60 million, like empty apartments. It might be more. I think 60 million was the number that I remember.
It's just enormous.
It's crazy.
It's like build it and people will come.
Well, what's funny is I remember, so back in 2010, you heard these stories of these empty cities that China was building, like middle of nowhere, like no people, nothing, and they're building these massive cities and nobody lives there. And I remember thinking, like, that's insane. Like, this has been building up for over a decade. We've already, we've been witnessing a bubble in the making. Or the bursting of a bubble in the making. And it's a good lesson, like, as somebody who's awake, and especially somebody who invests, is, you see these crazy dynamics. It's like, why would you build, it's like these weird things that happen. That was a red flag.
I don't know who would go in on that.
Well, the Chinese Communist Party did.
But there's U.S. money in there too. There's investors in there. There were a lot of red flags already. So, anyways, thanks, Pound of Gold. Let's see what we got here.
Let's move on. All right, so I wanted to talk today also about silver dollars. So none of what you see are Morgan silver dollars. However, I got a really special one here. This is a balboa.
Oh yeah, these are great.
This is from Panama, and so you can see it's 1966. And guess what the actual silver weight is? Oh, that's the same weight of a silver dollar. So obviously the beginnings of the American silver dollar have their roots in the Spanish, right?
Yeah.
So the Spanish were the first ones to mint this particular weight and purity, so which was 0.7734 troy ounces and 90% silver, right?
Can you show the other side? Yeah.
Super cool design. You look on eBay, it's funny, these things don't really they're auctioning off for like $30. I mean, there's not a big collector market for these, but which I don't quite understand, because it's a beautiful coin. I mean, I just, especially this one.
No, this one has a nice luster.
Oh, it's got great luster, and it's just, to me, it's very cool, right?
For those who may not know, that word luster, I heard it for years before I figured, before I really see it, right? Because it's something that coin people say all the time, but it's really like, it's hard to explain. It's kind of the shine in the metal that's still there.
Yeah. Well, and the thing with coins, especially what I believe it is, you get it particularly when you have an alloy like this, because it's 90% copper, and then it's 90% silver, 10% copper. So that's what I think is going on, is you have that alloy, because let's transition over to the American Silver Eagle. It's a different kind of luster, right? So it's kind of a flatter luster, and it doesn't have, now it's untouched, hasn't been cleaned, but it has a different luster to it.
I think flat is the key.
Exactly. Yeah. So let's see, we got that one. Yeah, you can see.
Well, the reverse is a little more.
Yeah. Still.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely.
That's why I'm so into proofs for American Silver Eagles.
Oh yeah.
Because the generic is just, it's flat.
Yeah. So speaking of proofs, this is a silver dollar weight. It's 0.7734 troy ounces. The U.S. Mint came out with these during the 84 Olympics, I think. Yeah, Los Angeles. I think that's 84. Oh yeah, this is minted in 83, but I think it was the 84 Olympics. I love that. Love that design.
Yeah,
that
really
80s that 80s design. That's the stars are kind of moving, and then the guy with throwing the discus is kind of, there's like 3 of them, or was that 4? Kind of cool. I like that. And then I like the eagle on the reverse too.
What do these go for? A little over a spot?
Oh yeah, a little over, like $2 over. I don't know. I don't have the case or anything. They made a bunch of these. I think it was kind of a money grab by the U.S. Mint, and they would charge like probably double melt for these things or triple, whatever. Yeah. You know how the U.S. Mint is with their BS
terrible
collectibles
business model.
Oh my gosh, it's so obscene.
It's priced that way because I said so.
Oh my gosh. And then this is another commemorative silver dollar weight. I don't like this design. I don't like it. It's not my favorite. This is all right. You know, Statue of Liberty is 1986, Ellis Island, but I don't like, it's just too busy. The design on this, it's too busy.
This is also U.S. Mint?
Yeah, it's U.S. Mint.
You know, years ago, I was really into these.
Yeah.
And then I kind of caught on and I reversed my course and I went into more like collectible stuff. Because, I just realized like, oh, this, they're pumping these out and they're just like, they're just trying to make money on really a terrible model.
Well, and as somebody who really enjoys coins myself, it's about the artistry. You know, like, did you make something that's actually beautiful? Is this a beautiful coin? And is the artwork, does it speak to you? Does it have like?
But you also like classical.
Yeah.
You don't really like that modern look so much.
Am
I wrong?
Well, like in terms of modern, I would say I like this.
Yeah.
Like this is just, it's, to me it's like, maybe not so much this side, but this side is like iconically 80s. Like I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Like I don't know. Like I like the artwork here. Yeah. I don't know. If I were to put a definition on it, it's a little hard for me to speak to.
What is this?
Now, this was a coin I actually think I showed you a couple weeks ago. This is a restrike. So it's 1780. You see right there. Yeah, 1780. This was, I think, restruck until, 1959, off the top of my head. So the fine weight on this, about 3/4 of an ounce, 0.7515. Yeah. Actually, if you'll excuse me, I gotta take care of something real fast. Yeah, I'll let you talk to that.
I will.
Yeah.
Let me take a better look at this. So, as I was telling Preston and everyone, I was really into these more modern. They're put up by the U.S. Mint, and I used to get these from coin shows for a little over spot, and I was always super excited about it because the silver content is silver content. But I realized, and this is when I reversed course, I realized that they're not so liquid. And in fact, I've spent many times going to coin shops trying to dump some of these. This was a couple of years ago, and often they're not wanted. I was just rejected. So, I reversed my course, and I went into what is very liquid, and that's American Silver Eagles, right? Totally liquid. in general, if you're new to stacking silver, in general, you want to stack the coin of your country. So typically here in the U.S., people stack American silver eagles or just generic silver rounds. Not so much Canadian maple leafs, but if you're in Canada, typically you're gonna be going for maple leafs because it's just highly liquid. It's more liquid. I mean, it's very rare that you are going to bring in the U.S. It's very rare that you're going to bring in this. If you crack this out of this slab, this is a first strike, which means that the design, the strike is supposed to be really strong. It's called first strike. So if you crack this out of this case and you brought it to a shop to sell it, nobody's going to turn you down, really. They're just highly liquid. Same for gold, American eagles, just highly liquid. But if you have a silver coin, or like even this, we're looking at this Balboa, the market for this is just smaller. It's just much smaller. I think it's cool. Me and Preston, we're into the designs of these coins. I think it's cool. And I like to hold the history. Preston was saying that this is a restrike. So even though it's a restrike, it still has a lot of history to it. So I like it, but it's just not going to be as liquid. So if you're new to stacking, you're going to want to go for anything that is super popular. It's just like anything else that you may want to sell in the future as it comes down. You're going to go for something that's super liquid, because when I was into these before I woke up and reversed my course, when I was into these, that happened to me. I would get these at coin shows, but local shops were like, no, not really. No, we're not going to have people coming and buying it, so no, thank you. And I think that if you're new to stacking, those are the kind of things that you really need to look at. So, what am I looking at here on the side here?
Oh,
these four.
These are fun. Sorry, I'll let you flip it over. So can you are you able to read that? So the actual silver weight is
Let me try to get
0.21 troy ounces. So it's 100 grains. It's 100 grains of silver, actual silver weight. And I don't know. I somebody brought that in. I'd never seen these before, and they're just kind of funky. Let's see. Let's try to read it.
What did it say there?
From the private treasury of Mary
M. Barada?
Yeah, Mary M. Barada.
Huh. Private treasury. That's what I'd like. I'd like to have my private treasury.
So it's 100 grains sterling silver, 1971. I bet you there's some collector out there that would love to get his or her hands on something like that.
Private. These are so. This is.
I mean, it's
privately
kind of
minted.
cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, and I don't know who that person is. It's obviously not Mary. It's not a Mary. I can
Mary's
tell you
handsome.
Yeah, I don't know who that guy is. Looks like one of the founding fathers, maybe. But yeah, maybe one of your viewers knows a bit more of the story behind that.
I know that in general, private. If you get, if you're lucky enough to be able to afford or get your hands on privately minted 19th century.
Yes.
Coinage, it's always, or even 18th century.
Oh,
you're
yeah.
really super lucky.
Privately mint. Oh, yeah, I know.
That just means that it's not, for those of you who are new to this, privately minted, specifically like gold.
Yeah.
Privately minted gold. Here in California, when we had the gold rush, we would get privately minted gold because it was just being found and people wanted to make it in.
You know what? I got my red book. I can show you some pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
From
let
me just find it.
Yeah, so when I create the pound of gold private mint, I'm going to charge a high premium for my pound of gold. This is 71 also. This is 1971. What is this giant thing I'm holding? Do you know what this is?
Yeah, it's
is it silver?
Yeah, it's so speaking of Panamanian coins, it's 20 balboas.
It actually feels kind of light for silver.
Yeah. It's like 3.5 troy ounces of actual silver.
Oh, there's something else in there.
Yeah. No, it's definitely 90%. 90% silver, 10% copper.
Pound of gold likes that year 71. There's a hint.
Oh,
there's a hint about pound of gold. He
yeah,
likes that 71 year.
I guess the hint must be it's the 150th anniversary of independence.
Yes, that's the hint.
Central America.
Yes, that's the only thing important that happened in 71.
The story behind Panama is very interesting because, it was basically the United States helped out with that. Because Panama was originally part of Gran Colombia, which included Venezuela, Colombia, Panama, and I think there's one other country. I just don't remember which one.
Did you want to show us these 3 different slabs?
Yes. Okay. So this is obviously PCGS slab. I don't know if Pound of Gold wants to crack these out. I think I heard some hints that you wanted to break some slabs open, which if you want to do that, we can try. I've done it before. Cracking slabs is not that hard, even on a decent the PCGS, the latest slabs. These things are pretty tough to crack, but what you do, I'll give you a hint. Take a screwdriver, kind of get some leverage right here, and then you'll get a clamp. Clamp the coin so it's stable, and you clamp the slab, and then you take a screwdriver. So actually, I'm sorry, I've got a Phillips here. You want a flathead. You want a flathead screwdriver, and then you just hold on. I got a flathead over here. Here we go. So flathead screwdriver, and just drive that sucker in. Just hammer that baby in, and then you'll pry it open like that.
I've tried that method. I have many years of cracking out.
Oh yeah.
And many years of destroying coins cracking out because I have done that.
Yeah.
Usually it does work, but I've done it. But I have done it, and it went in way too quick than I thought, and totally. Cracking out's not for the faint. You gotta know that you're taking a risk.
You got to be light in the wrist. Be a little fairy with that thing. I'm just kidding. Yes. Just tap it gently. Give it a nice tap. See how far it goes in. See how much strength you need to get it in.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of which, let me just help you with that.
Thanks.
So this is another one. So this is a Cuban. 1953. This is a Centenario de Martí. So Jose Martí was a well-known political figure from Cuba. Don't know much more than that. I think he was president of Cuba at one point. He was a very special figure in the history of Cuba. República. 1953. So, República de Cuba, Patria y Libertad. So, fatherland, I think. Sorry, patriotism. That's what I meant. And liberty. Super cool. It's also the same weight. Spanish silver dollar, 0.7734.
Huh.
So you'll see this weight. This weight is super common in the Americas.
0.7734.
Yes, this weight, and this was the weight of the American silver dollar. So Morgan silver dollars, peace dollars, trade dollars, all had this weight, and of course 90% silver, 10% copper. So it's cool. They're not high priced collectibles, but the story behind these and how they tie to America is very cool. So, and obviously this was before the time of Castro. He came to power in 1959. So, and then that was when the communists kicked out Bautista. So.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Before my battery runs out, let's see this.
Okay,
so we're talking about privately issued.
Yes, super cool. All right, so let's flip back. Ooh, this is really fun. Okay, so you notice this common date of 1849. So you have Oregon gold, beaver coins of Oregon. I haven't really read these stories in the Red Book. If any of you has a Red Book, flip to page 407. This is from 2022, so you might be a different page number if you're the latest date. Ooh, let's flip over. Kellogg and Company, San Francisco, 1854 to 1855. And then let's go over here. Dunbar and Company, San Francisco, 1851. You have the famous $50 gold piece, 1855, which was privately minted. That's Wasp, Molitor and Company, San Francisco, 1852 to 1855. Let's flip back. Wow, there were actually. You know, it's funny. I haven't spent that much time in this part of the Red Book, because even though we're here in the Bay Area, I have never seen any of these in person.
They're not going to bring it in.
No, they're not going to.
No, but if you go to a coin show, even if you could, we mentioned Long Beach. When I was in Long Beach, you could see a lot of these. I love that.
So this is I don't know if I think we've shown this on our show here. This is you'll see this on the Mexican silver dollar. That I think it's I forget what the denomination. Yeah, it's the turd with the rays of light.
That's really what it looks like. It looks like very expensive turd.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
golden
that
turd.
says $300,000.
Yeah. That's I've seen that on Mexican. I think it was 1 peso. I think from the 1920s actually. Let's see. So you got some more Moffett and Company. That's definitely
big money.
San Francisco.
85,000.
Massachusetts and California Company. Miners Bank, San Francisco. J. Ormsby, Sacramento. Okay, very cool.
If you see any of these, they better be slabbed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would never buy one that's not slabbed. Okay, then you got another $50 gold piece. U.S. Assay Office of Gold, firm of Moffett and Company, was dissolved in 1852. And then a reorganized company, U.S. Assay Office of Gold. So that was actually a private company. Even though it sounds governmental.
Is there nothing on the back?
Looks like no.
Lazy.
Lazy. Lazy.
I'm confident my battery's going to die.